friends. Hi. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to 25 days of astrology. So every day in December, from December 1st through December 25th, Christmas, I will be uploading one long form content video on my YouTube channel. So this is the video for December 3rd, and in today's video we are going to talk about the Saturn return experience. Now, if you are like me and you have your Saturn in Aries, you are, if your Saturn is in the early degree, already experiencing your Saturn return, or you will be about to experience your Saturn return. So I have a video specifically about the Saturn return in Aries. I'll tag it here if you want to go watch it to get even more specific context. But this video is just going to be about the Saturn return as a whole, what to expect from the transit just generally, and then how it may potentially manifest for each house. So let's get into that. But before we do, moonworldmommy.com to book a birth chart reading, and all of these links will be in the description box as well. I am a professional astrologer. I read charts for a living. If you have any questions about yourself, your life, your birth chart, your Saturn return, whatever, I can answer them for you if you book with me. Also, go subscribe to my Patreon. For $15 a month, you get to ask me a question that can be answered. I can pull a card, or I can use your birth chart to answer it. So it's a great way to connect with me. It's a great way to get a reading for not an expensive price. I don't think my readings are expensive, but you get what I'm saying. Good way to stay connected with me and to get readings for the low. So tap into my Patreon, and yeah, let's get into it. So Saturn. What is a Saturn return? What is a planetary return? In general, a planetary return takes place when the planet returns to the position in the sky that it was in when you were born. The return happens when that planet returns to that exact same sign, that exact same degree, that exact same minute. Right? Boom. Right on top. It's like a repeat. And so the most common return that we hear about, of course, is the solar return, which happens around your birthday every year. The sun returns to the position that it's in, and it can tell you what to expect for the year. Same concept with the lunar return. The moon is the planet that transits the zodiac in about a month. So you can use your lunar return every month to kind of see what to expect from the month as a whole. Now, Saturn takes about 29 and a half years to transit the zodiac. So your Saturn return happens somewhere between, the entire transit lasts between like 28 to 30-ish. But yes, your Saturn return is when Saturn returns to the exact sign and degree that it was in when you were born. And a planetary return really activates themes of that planet because, again, it's returning, it's emphasized. So the first Saturn return happens between 28 to 30. Then again between 58 to 60. Then if you're lucky to live long enough, you'll have another Saturn return around 89. And it brings up Saturnian themes. Saturn is the planet that represents challenges, blockages, delays, commitment, responsibility. So your Saturn return, especially the first one, is like a reality check. I saw something online, a news, I don't know what news station this was from, but they did like a news report on, they surveyed a bunch of people and they asked a lot of people, okay, what was the age in life where you started to really feel like an adult? And the most common ages were 27 to 28. And it makes sense because 27 is when, and a lot of people will say your Saturn return starts at 27, and they'll say that the transit takes about 3 years. I don't necessarily agree with that. Yes, Saturn will enter the sign that your Saturn return is in when you're 27. But me personally, I consider your Saturn return the entire duration of when transiting Saturn is conjunct your natal Saturn. So when Saturn is applying to your natal Saturn, when that aspect is increasing, and then after it conjoins is when it goes exact, and then after it leaves, when it separates, it's still close. So this happens about 10 degrees before so if your Saturn is at 20 degrees of Aries, your Saturn return will generally begin when Saturn hits about 10 Aries, and then it'll end about when Saturn leaves the sign, because a sign is 30 degrees, but it goes from 0 to 29. So Yeah. So yeah, your Saturn return, like I said, you start to feel the effects of your Saturn return before it happens, yes, because Saturn is in that house. So it's already going to bring up some of those themes to prominence. But yeah, Saturn return, I've calculated, takes about 14 months, give or take, from when Saturn is first applying to your natal Saturn, makes the actual conjunction, and then when it separates from your natal Saturn. And the first Saturn return, again, because Saturn is commitment, Saturn is responsibility, Saturn is hard work, Saturn is his lessons. It's really like a reality check. And it's like, okay, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm grown up. I have these major responsibilities. And when you think about a Saturn return, what happens around 27? I mean, well, not even 27, but like 28 to 30. It's when people start to get married. It's when people start to have kids. You're figuring out your professional life and establishing yourself in your role in your job. Like you're noticing, like, okay, like I said, playtime is over. It's time to get serious and committed with the things that I'm looking for and wanting in my life. I read, I didn't finish reading the book, but Cosmos and Psyche, which is an astrology book that studies the transits. I mean, it studies the planets, but more specifically the outer planet transits. And it really talks about how the planetary influences have affected the world at large on a global mundane level. And in Planets in Psyche, he talks about how during your first Saturn return, specifically, the work that you do during your Saturn return will set you up for success for the rest of your fucking life. And really, because Saturn, again, takes about 29 years to transit the zodiac, it's like you can kind of look at your life within the context of your Saturn returns and your Saturn phases. Because again, the first Saturn return, like, okay, and this video is mostly focusing on the first Saturn return. If you're in the later age range and you want to know about the second Saturn return, or shit, even, I don't know that any 90-year-olds are watching this YouTube video. But yeah, if you want a video about the second Saturn return specifically, I can definitely do that for you. But yeah, your first Saturn return, like I said, you're getting established, you're figuring out your life, you're getting committed. Your second Saturn return is like, okay, I've worked, I've done these things, I've built my legacy. Now people are looking at you as like a mentor, as an authority figure. It's a time to start figuring out, okay, what have I done with my life? Then your last Saturn return, if you live to be long enough, okay, Saturn is also the planet of death. So it's like, okay, I'm getting my affairs in order. I'm preparing to die. I'm wrapping up my life, so on and so forth. So those are the themes of the Saturn return. You can really look at them as a whole. It's like check-ins. So, and again, you can notice that during these like 30-year increments, it's like, okay, what am I doing with my life? So the Saturn return, something that people don't really emphasize a lot, is that not only is Saturn going to be in that specific house, but Saturn is also going to be ruling two houses. So for me, for example, Saturn is in my 10th house, but Saturn also rules my 7th house and my 8th house. So yes, my Saturn return is going to affect my 10th house of my careers, my goals, my public image and reputation, but Saturn can also affect my relationships, and it can also affect my relationships with other people, because the 8th house is the house of other people's money, support, things of that nature. So, and I'm really, just focus. I feel like it's going to get too confusing if I start to talk about other stuff. So I'm really just going to focus on the house that Saturn is returning in. But yes, just keep that in mind, that the Saturn return does not just necessarily affect that house that Saturn is in, but it also affects the houses that Saturn rules. And if you also have planets in those houses and things like that, like layers and layers, again, we ain't gonna get that deep, but your Saturn return can really affect a lot of things in your chart. So even thinking about somebody like me, I have my Saturn in Aries in the 10th house, but Saturn is conjunct my Mars and my Mercury. So my Saturn return is also going to affect the Martian houses of my chart. It's also going to affect the Mercurial houses of my chart. Then my Saturn is ruling the 7th and the 8th house, but I have 4 planets in my 8th house. So Saturn's going to affect, like, my Saturn return is going to affect my personal life because I'm a Cancer rising with an Aquarius moon. Saturn rules my moon. Like, so when you really think about just the layers and like what Saturn rules and all of that in your chart, like, this stuff gets deep. But again, we're just focusing on Saturn return, what it means, and Saturn return in each specific house. But this is where, like, if you booked a reading with me or you got more context for yourself or even from another astrologer, these are the things that we would talk about in addition to just like, oh, you're in your Saturn return. So generally speaking, what does a Saturn return feel like? Pressure. Because again, Saturn is commitment, seriousness, responsibility. Saturn is weight. Saturn is heavy. And Saturn literally can indicate pressure. Pressure to grow up. Pressure to choose the direction. Pressure to commit to something. Pressure to restructure your life and to get serious. Because again, you're not a kid anymore. And it's a time where you have to get serious. You have to start having more responsibilities and things like that. Like I said, the Saturn return is really like a reality check type of vibe. Saturn is realness. Saturn is reality. And this can bring reality checks around your personal maturity, discipline, boundaries that you have in your life, and also your long-term stability, just period. Saturn is lessons. So your Saturn return can definitely also prompt major life lessons and major things that you have to think about. These aren't the things that you can finesse or try to spiritually bypass or just bypass with anything. Like when I think about Saturn, like Saturn in essence reminds me of Solange's song Cranes in the Sky. Like she tried to drink it away, she tried to dance it away, she tried to sleep it away, she tried to have sex away. Like she tried to do everything to get rid of what she was going through, and it's like you can't avoid it. That's the essence of Saturn. Saturn don't play with nobody. I like to think of Saturn as your daddy. And the thing is, Saturn delays, but it does not deny. If it's meant for you to have something, if it's meant for you to get something done, you're gonna do it. But it might take you a little bit longer to get there. But Saturn rewards patience. Saturn rewards hard work. Saturn rewards diligence. And also something else that I forgot to mention, your Saturn return experience also depends on if you have a day chart or a night chart. If you have a day chart, that means that your sun is above the ascendant-descendant axis. So that means that Saturn it's the malefic of sect. So yes, Saturn is a challenging planet, but for somebody who has a day chart, Saturn can be more constructive and it can offer more benefits. It can, in your Saturn return, you might find to be more of a supportive transit. Like people will tell you, oh my God, my Saturn return kicked my ass. Saturn is doom and gloom, but like, yes, it is. But also you have to take things into consideration. Like, do you have a day chart or a night chart? What is Saturn aspecting or doing in your chart? What is your own personal connection with your Saturn placement? So like, you have to think about that as a whole. But yeah, overall, Saturn, if you work hard, if you invest, if you do what the fuck you're supposed to do, Saturn will, not all the time, I don't want to make it sound like it's that easy, because sometimes you could do everything right and it's still not meant for you. But Saturn will give you what you need, in a sense. And a SpongeBob analogy, if you listen to me and my content or got a reading with me, you've probably heard this a million times. But I like to think of Saturn as your grandpa. It's a Saturday, your parents drop you off at your grandparents' house, and you like, all right, bet. It's a Saturday, we live, I'm about to kick it, I'm about to lay on the couch, I'm about to watch SpongeBob, I'm about to chill. But your grandpa's like, get your ass up. We about to go to the grocery store. We about to go cut the grass. We about to get in the garden. We about to plant these flowers. We about to weed. And you're like, huh? I want to chill. I want to watch SpongeBob. What is grandpa on? But you do the things because you don't have a choice. You can't be in your grandpa's house sitting on your ass. But when you leave, when your parents come back to pick you up, grandpa gives you $100 bill. Grandpa gives you a lot of money. Grandpa loves you. You're his baby. He always was going to give you that money and supported you. But grandpa wants you to know that you cannot just sit on your ass and expect things to happen for you. And that's really the essence of Saturn, period. So, what are some typical themes that one can expect during their first Saturn return? Which again, Saturn will make the direct contact with your natal Saturn somewhere between ages 28 to 30. Now, Saturn will give you a lot of career things, probably. This can bring career clarity. You might figure out what you want to do. You might start to build a solid structure within the context of your goals and career and professional life. Or on the other end, this might prompt a crisis. You might not know what you're doing. You might really start freaking out and panicking and struggling as well too. And this might feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? Everybody's on the right track. Everybody's doing this. I'm behind. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it can give those types of vibes. Saturn, if you're in a relationship, a Saturn return can give energy to make you have to make major relationship decisions. Are you going to commit? Are you going to let go of this situation? Even thinking about if you're not in a committed relationship, if you have Saturn is boundaries, Saturn is restriction, you might find yourself having to think about your connections and the boundaries and relationships that you have with people in your life. I already mentioned this again, but like people might move, settle down, or make major lifestyle changes. A lot of times during your Saturn return, this is when people move out of their parents' house, or this is when they leave their hometown, or again, you buy a house, you settle down, you make a major investment, you buy some property, you buy some land, or again, reshaping your lifestyle. If you've felt like, okay, I'm not handling my business, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, the Saturn return can put fire on your ass and definitely bring you structure and discipline and to help you be productive and proactive. This can be a time to really help you solidify and identify your goals and the overall things that you have going on, maybe currently, but also long term, and like what you want out of life, just period. This is a really good time because Saturn, again, is boundaries and restriction. This can be a really good time to let go of bad habits, people, mindsets, ideologies, anything that is not helpful or productive for you, period. And again, Saturn represents longevity. Saturn is planning. Saturn is the long term. So this can bring up long-term plans around things like your finances, your business or professional life, and even, your health, your physicality. And yeah, it's not just a very quick transit because, again, like I said, from the time Saturn can join your natal Saturn to when it leaves your natal Saturn, it is a 14-month period. Even also, depending on the Saturn retrograde cycle, Saturn is retrograde for 4 or 5 months out of the year. So during your Saturn return, Saturn might make contact to your natal Saturn multiple times. So yeah, you start to, like I said, your Saturn return, when Saturn enters the house that Saturn is in, you start to feel the effects of the Saturn return because Saturn is just commitment and responsibilities and seriousness, period. So it's like, okay, boom, I feel the weight of these themes being more prominent or being more heavy. Like I said, depending on the retrograde or the motion or how Saturn is traveling, there could be 2 or even sometimes 3 direct hits to your natal Saturn, which will really reiterate and bring up these themes of the Saturn return. And again, after that exact hit, you're still going to feel the energy of that transit. So yeah, the overall from when Saturn first enters your sign until it leaves that respective sign is about 2.5 years. But yeah, like I said, your exact Saturn return is probably about 14 months or so. So why is this important? Saturn, again, is really like the initiation into adulthood, and it marks a new level of responsibility, a new chapter of mastery and life development and growth as a whole. It's a time to leave behind childish patterns and things that are not conducive for your overall goals in life and well-being. And it's a time for you to really step it up and enter the real world and do the things for your long-term goals and your major life trajectory, period. So let's get into what you can expect from your Saturn return by each house. Okay, so if your Saturn is in the first house is the house that represents your identity, your body, your personal autonomy, your goals, your overall life decisions and direction. So this is really like a major, who am I? What do I have going on moment? It's a really good time for you to figure out yourself, your goals, and just everything that's important to you. This can be a major identity overhaul. You might be releasing a former version of yourself and really tapping into who you are and who you want to be and where you want to go. Your health, your stamina, and your physical habits are definitely something that needs to be taken seriously, because if you have Saturn in the first house, just in general, your health might be a major problem for you. And it can just indicate the potential for health challenges, or a need for you to take your health seriously, and that Saturn return can really reiterate and reinforce that. Saturn is a planet that can be associated with independence and isolation. So even thinking about a Saturn return in the first house, this could be a time to where you might really have to be reliant on yourself, and you might find yourself having to stand on your own and maybe be a little bit more independent, and you might not necessarily have all the support or things or resources from others, and might have to, again, just really be reliant and dependent on you to get things done. And you might notice that, like, you might have to enforce boundaries with other people or things or habits or just stuff that you have going on in your life. And you might notice that a lot of situations or people might be treating you differently because you are enforcing these boundaries and getting more serious about real adulthood. And some of the things that Saturn is going to test is your overall discipline, your self-definition, who are you, and also your physical boundaries. So the second house is your money, your income, your resources, your possessions, your skills. It's also the house that represents your needs and sustenance and the way that you provide and take care for yourself. So Saturn return in the second house, of course, can give a major financial reality check. This could be a time for you to really have to start budgeting, handling your debts, thinking about your income stability as well. You might have to, if you don't have discipline with money, if you don't make the best financial decisions, this is the time for you to really figure it out, and you're going to have to stop. Like, you're going to need a budget. You're going to have to be disciplined when it comes to your pocketbook. You might also find yourself, again, because you're taking your money and finances more seriously, you might find yourself really tapping into things and bringing the structure and discipline to put into skills and resources and things that can support the actual growth and stability of your finances. If you have any issues or things that you have to deal with as it pertains to money, it's a time to deal with that so that you can come up and be stronger. And this is a really good time to just focus overall on long-term financial security, period. And your Saturn return is going to test your earning power, your self-sufficiency, and the ways that you take care of yourself, and also the ways that you handle your money and your resources as a whole. The third house is the house that represents communication, the way that you learn and process things. It's the house that represents your daily life, your daily interactions, your neighborhood, the things that are intermediate to you. And it also is the house that is associated with your siblings. So this could be a really good time for you to restructure your routines and your daily habits and the things that you do and the things that you interact with on a daily basis. This could be a time where you maybe go back to school or decide to learn or study something and seriously commit to it, whether that's you going to school and getting an actual degree, or maybe you're just doing some personal self-study, or maybe you're even getting a certificate or something that can help further yourself professionally. You might find yourself having increased responsibilities that might have to deal with your siblings. You can refine your voice, your messaging, your communication style. You might get really serious about the things that you believe or know as well. And you can really find yourself becoming more intentional with your words and how you are speaking and expressing yourself, period. Saturn can test your consistency, your mental discipline, and also the way that you communicate and how responsibly or effectively are you communicating. Saturn is in your fourth house, which is the house that represents home, family, your roots, your foundations, your ancestry. So this might prompt family issues that might resurface in order for a resolution. Maybe there's things that come up with your dad or, just any family member. I say dad because the fourth house is specifically attached to the father. But If there's any family things that you have to unpack, your Saturn return can be a time to unpack that. Because the fourth house is the house that represents your home or living situation, during your Saturn return, you might find that you're moving, buying a home, or even creating more stability within your home life or your living situation. Because the fourth house is the house that represents your home and living situation, the fourth house can also be associated with your childhood and your upbringing. And this could be a really good time for you to confront some of your childhood patterns. And you might be finding yourself thinking about or reflecting on the way that you've grown up or some of the things that your parents or family might have done. You might find yourself taking on more family responsibilities. Maybe you move back home. Maybe a family member gets sick and you got to hold it down. There could just be some more seriousness that involves your home or family life. Saturn, and again, you can just really find yourself, the fourth house is the house that represents your foundation. So you can find yourself building up your roots and really solidifying and bringing stability just to your life, like as a whole, and like everything. And your Saturn return can really test your family life, your living situation, your long-term stability, and your overall foundation, and like how you are supported and how you're grounding yourself. The fifth house is the house of love, sex, dating, romance. It's the house of children, creativity, fun, joy, pleasure. If you are a creative, you might find that this is a time where your creative projects might become serious commitments. So let's say you really like to knit and you decide, like, okay, I'm about to start selling my sweaters. I've been selling my sweaters for a long time. I'm about to quit my job and do this full time now. With the fifth house representing love and romance, dating can become intentional. This could be a time for you to settle down or for you to really get serious about what you want out of a partner or dating or just commitments in your love life as a whole. And it can really show you, like, all right, I might need to tighten up with my love life. I say that I want to be married, but I'm not doing anything to bring my husband or my wife to my life. Let me, again, tighten up. The fifth house is the house of children. So Saturn returning the fifth house, this is definitely a time where people have children. And if you already have children, there could be responsibilities that pertain to your own children. Or if you don't have children, there could just be some major themes or responsibilities that come up to you around children, period. Let's say you don't have kids, but your sister is down bad and you got to take in your niece or nephew for a couple of months. Like, it could be something like that. The fifth house is the house that represents fun, joy, pleasure, things that we like, things that are pleasing to us overall. So this could be a time for you to really figure out what brings you joy and what real happiness is like, what you really like to do versus what you might feel obligated to do, or the things that you do socially, or the things that you do because you feel like you have to, or even impulse pleasures. Like, you could be somebody, like the fifth house is gambling and risks. So this could be a time for you to get more serious and tighten up with some of the things that you do impulsively in these areas as well. Let's say, you like to sleep around, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm pro ho. Remember that. But you might, okay, I don't want to keep sleeping around. I want to find my girlfriend. I want to find my boyfriend. I want to fall in love. Like, it could be a time for that. And with the fifth house representing, again, your hobbies, creativity, creative expression, this could be a time, Saturn return in the fifth house, to take your hobbies and commitments and things more seriously, and taking your talents and turning them into something real instead of maybe just a hobby. The sixth house is the house that represents work, service, your health, especially bad health. It's more associated with like your routines, productivity, discipline, structure, all of that. So this can bring major discipline in your life. Maybe you decide, like, all right, I suck with getting things done. I want to stop procrastinating. So you come up with a plan or a schedule that really fully allows you to maximize your time and to be more efficient. With the sixth house representing like your work and responsibility, you might find that your workload increases, or you just have a lot going on, a lot more personal responsibilities and commitments and things that have to get done. But you can find yourself having mastery, and you can find yourself really, yeah, you're working hard, but like it's toward a goal, or you're really refining your craft, that type of energy. Health is so important. You have to do right to yourself and your body. So during your sixth house Saturn return, this could be a time for you to really, all right, I'm going back to the gym. I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start implementing more rest. And I'm going to start making sure that I get my 8 hours of sleep. Blase skip. It's a really good time to focus on your health, because that's another thing about Saturn, especially Saturn in the sixth house. Saturn, if you don't slow down or sit down, Saturn will do it for you. So remember that. And yeah, I already kind of touched on this, but one of my next bullet points in my notes is like, you're going to be pushed to be organized and to manage your time and your habits and your productivity better, just overall. And you're really just finding yourself taking more responsibility and really getting committed to your well-being and your daily productivity as a whole. And Saturn is really going to emphasize discipline, service, and your health habits. I don't think I said what Saturn tests and emphasizes for the fifth house. If I did, my bad. But authenticity and expression, maturity in your pleasures, and also a lot of creative discipline. Saturn return in the seventh house can bring up themes related to your relationships, marriage, partnerships, contracts. Relationships can become more serious or they can dissolve. The seventh house, yes, is the house that represents your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, a long-term relationship. But the seventh house is also the house that represents partnership as a whole, and the way that you relate to and commit to any sort of relationship or relationship dynamic. So this could be a really good time for like Saturn return in the seventh house. Like Saturn in the seventh house period could be a time where people get married or settle down or make a major commitment in a relationship. Or, Saturn is boundaries. You've been with your boyfriend for 7 years, but you want to get married, you don't want to get married. Bye, boyfriend, I'm about to go find my husband. Or you have really bad boundary issues and everybody uses and abuses you. So now it's time, all right, I'm about to start saying no. I'm about to start standing up for myself. This is a really good time to get just serious and disciplined about what partnership really means to you. What do you want out of a relationship? What do you want out of the people who you love? This is your man, this is your woman, or this is your mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin, co-worker, business partner, anybody, anything. Thinking about the reciprocity, thinking about the give and take of relationships, and just, again, really getting focused on what you want, but also what you are giving as well, too. Saturn is age, Saturn is commitment, Saturn is seriousness and responsibilities. So this could be a time for you to maybe get connected with older people. You might find yourself maybe attracting older or more mature or more serious partners even. Or you could find yourself getting involved with more serious type of people in general. Maybe you find a business mentor. Maybe you just find yourself connecting with more serious people as you get more serious. Saturn, again, is responsibility and patience and time. So this could be a time where you're facing some of your patterns and commitments and really thinking about and getting serious about who you're connecting with and why and what are the overall dynamics of these relationships. And like I already said, marriage is something that could be emphasized. But even like divorce, again, because you might get serious and think about your commitments and what's going on in your relationships. And also the seventh house is business partnerships. So this could even be a time where maybe you start a business with your best friend or just somebody that you know in general, or you find a major business partner or just get serious about something like that. The eighth house is the house that represents shared resources, debt, other people's money. The eighth house is also the house of like your psyche, fears, trauma, resentment, things like that can be seen in the eighth house. So this could be a really good time for you to face your fears around vulnerability. This could be a really good time for you to face some of your fears around some of your wounds, some of your insecurities, to address and maybe do like a lot of personal inner work. You could go to therapy. You could start to implement like some sort of self-care or therapeutic practice, even if it's not necessarily you going and talking to the lady. Maybe you start a shadow work journey. Maybe you start picking up on something spiritual, so on and so forth. Debts, taxes, inheritances, or other people's finances or shared resources might become a major focus. Let's say you've been real reckless with your spending and you haven't been paying no taxes. Uncle Sam might come knocking on that door. Or even thinking about, the eighth house is the house of death. Maybe somebody in your family or something happens and, they die. Or you get a major investment from somebody for something and you start to do something with that money. And even thinking about the eighth house is the other people's things and other people's resources and things that they can give to you. So this could be a time for you to maybe merge with somebody or something or a business on a long-term level. And this is a really good time to, again, just work on yourself and the inner workings of your mind, and even thinking about your relationship with support, because the eighth house is other people's money and resources and things that you can get from others. Saturn return in the eighth house can prompt some major themes related to your entanglements with other people, how you're managing your resources, and really just how you handle your business. Like, this could be a time where you have to get more serious and find more stability for yourself, and specifically with your resources, and even the give and take and things that other people give you versus what you can do for yourself. If your Saturn return is in the ninth house, you are going to be focusing on themes of like your belief systems. Higher education and learning could be important. Traveling and exploration could be important. Because the ninth house represents your beliefs, your morals, your values, your ideologies on like a larger global scale, the ninth house is what you know and what you believe in. So you might find yourself having major shifts in your worldview or in just your spiritual beliefs in general. You might start to look at the world in a different lens. You might learn something, do something, see something that helps broaden your perspective as a whole. You might find yourself studying something serious or taking an advanced approach to something. Like, I literally did a reading for a client today. She is finishing up her PhD and she is wrapping up her Saturn transit in the ninth house. And yeah, you might decide like, okay, I like this. I want to go back to school, or I need to go back to school in order to maximize my income or for further professional success in any sort of way. And this might be a time for you to, just really buckle down on something that you want to learn. Not the eighth. I'm sleepy, y'all. It's 12:30 midnight as I record this, and my edible just kicked in. There could be a major move. The ninth house is the house that represents like foreign cultures, foreign lands, things, people, places that are long distance. So this could be a time for you to have a major life distance, like just a huge exponential life change. You might move, you might travel, you might do something or learn something that's like, boom, wow, my worldview has changed. Even thinking about the ninth house is a house that's associated with like wisdom and knowledge, and even more specifically the dissemination of it. So like, you might find yourself maybe writing or publishing something because the ninth house is associated with that. Maybe you start teaching something. Not maybe as literal as, all right, I'm about to become a teacher, but like, let's say you are a surgeon and you start hosting workshops within hospitals or your specific field about a different technique, and you start teaching that to other people. Maybe you have something or a larger message that you want to broadcast or share or help other people to educate. And this is really just a time for you to maybe potentially step into some sort of authority. And yeah, like, it's a really good time to open up your worldview and let go of old belief systems that might no longer align with you. You might have grown up in the church and decide, I ain't feeling this whole Jesus thing. Let me dabble into hoodoo or an ATR or something like that. Or you might decide, yeah, I've tried this whole spiritual woo thing. I don't like it. I'm about to call my grandma and she about to lay hands on me, and I'm about to go pick up my Bible. I'm about to take it back to the church. And yeah, just letting go of things that do not align with you overall. And this can, Saturn will really test your beliefs, your morals, what you know to be true. your long-term educative goals, and also just you might grow up and think more seriously with the world at large. Saturn return in the 10th house can bring up themes related to your career, your reputation, your public roles in life. So this gives a lot of responsibility, but even on like a larger, broader scale, this can bring a lot of career shifts or leveling up. You might find yourself really building something or establishing something for yourself and really focusing on your long-term goals and doing things now that can set you up professionally for success later on. And you might find yourself, when I said more not financial, but more career responsibilities and taking on more tasks and just getting more serious and structured about what you want and how you want to do it. You might even find yourself stepping into a more visible or authoritative role. Maybe you've been at your job for 7 years and they ask you to be in charge of a department, or maybe you start your own company, or maybe you go out on your own, or you start to just build something within maybe an already existing entity, or maybe you start to build something for yourself. You might even find yourself taking your reputation and your public image a little bit more seriously, and you might really start to think about what you're doing and how you're doing it within the context of the professional role or your work or something like that. And this is going to be a time where you might have to make some serious long-term career decisions, and the moves that you make now can definitely absolutely affect the major trajectories that you have for your career just throughout the course of your career as a whole. And your Saturn is really going to test your ambition, your authority, and your legacy as a whole. If your Saturn return is in the 11th house, this brings up things related to your friends, networks, groups, alliances, and your also personal aspirations and goals and what you want out of life. With Saturn being your network, the people that you know, your friendships, not with Saturn, with the 11th house. Saturn returning in the 11th house can prompt you to get more serious about who you're around, who you're involving yourself with. You might find yourself cutting people off, but not even just that, really aligning yourself with friends and groups and communities that are supportive for yourself and what you're trying to do. With the 11th house being like your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions, your wishes, you might find yourself getting more serious about your long-term goals and just what you want out of life, period. This could be a time where you might really want to build community and get connected with other people in any sort of way. So like I said, an example, literally like a couple minutes ago, you fell out with your friends. It's time to move on. All right, now you're getting more serious and committed about building community and aligning yourself with the proper people. You might find yourself having more responsibilities within the context of like a group or an organization. So let's say, you're in a book club and you decide like, oh, I want to be a president of our local chapter. Or you might, back to the knitting thing, you might really like to knit. So you decide like, all right, I'm about to start posting my knitting things on social media, and I'm about to ask other people if they want to maybe collaborate and, start a Discord or something like that. And your network can really upgrade because, again, Saturn is boundaries and restriction. You might find yourself letting go of dead weight, cutting off loose ends, and really making room for and aligning yourself, but also really pouring into some of the existing relationships that you might have had. And you can really upgrade your network and the encounters and situations that you might find yourself involved in because of these people. And lastly, the 12th house is the house that represents isolation, your mental health, your subconscious mind. So Saturn return in this house can bring up a lot of those themes. And Saturn return is like double emphasis because Saturn naturally rejoices in the 12th house. Saturn loves to be in the 12th house. So even just in general, thinking about your Saturn return in the 12th house, Saturn is boom. On TikTok, I see now everybody's talking about doing things to get them in the flow state. A planet being at home, or a planet being in its sign of I was about to say a sign where it's rejoicing. Yeah, that does sound right. In the sign where it rejoices, it's like, all right, I'm in flow state. I'm turned up. I can do what I want to do. And y'all, I might not even edit this video. I'm so sleepy, so I'm sorry. I know I coughed, I burped. I'm just trying to get this out for 25 days of astrology because I'm so busy. So just work with me. Saturn return in the 12th house. Like I said, Saturn rejoices in the 12th house. And if you have your Saturn in the 12th house, you might find yourself being somebody who naturally likes your alone time. You might be somebody who's a hermit. And this Saturn return is only going to reiterate that. Like, it's really a time where you might find yourself separating yourself from others and really just focusing on you. Old wounds. Wounds are definitely going to hit different, especially thinking about the fact that the 12th house, like the 8th house, is a house that can be associated with fears. It's the house that represents your subconscious mind. It's a house that can be associated with like overthinking, and Saturn in the 12th house already makes a heavy head. And this can be a time for you to just really unpack some of your fears and reservations about life overall. 12th house is the house of hidden enemies. Hidden enemies or some of your blind spots might get exposed. So just really focus on that as well. And the 12th house, again, is the inner workings of your mind. It represents your subconscious mind. It is your intuition. It is another house that can be associated with your perspective and worldview, because the way that you think and feel about yourself on that deeper mental level will just affect how you do and look at everything else in life. And this is a really good time to really connect with yourself and unpack and heal, because you can't hide from yourself. And a Saturn return in the 12th house will definitely expose some of those things that need to be worked on, period. And it's just a really good time to let go of any toxic patterns, belief systems, because the 12th house is the house that's associated with self-doing and self-undoing, and also your vices and things that are not good for you that you get yourself involved in. Time to cut out all things that are not conducive for your growth, period. So yeah, y'all, Saturn return is best if you work with the energy of Saturn. Of course, again, I don't want to make it seem like Saturn is, even if you do right, like I said, Saturn can still kick your ass. Saturn is not ever really sunshine, flowers, and rainbows. But Saturn is support. Saturn is leadership. Saturn is a planet that's associated with authority. Saturn is longevity. I don't know if I said Saturn is legacy or not. I think I did. But just a really important time, and it's just time to tighten up, period. So yeah, you got this. Saturn and Aries babies, we got this, period. If you have your Saturn in Pisces, Saturn stationed direct a few days ago, so you're about to be out of your Saturn return if your Saturn's in a late degree. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think. If you've already gone through your Saturn return, I would love for you to come in the comments and tell what house Saturn was in for you, and maybe give some major themes or how you connected with that house, so you can offer some guidance to people who are approaching their Saturn return, or who will experience their Saturn returns later. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I feel like this video ended up being a little bit long, but I ain't mad at it. Y'all asked for longer videos for 25 days of astrology, so y'all better watch this video. But yeah, thank you again for watching. As always, like I said, links to all of my socials, my website, how to book a reading, whatever, in the description box. Comment below and let me know also what other videos or subjects you want to see for the 25 days of astrology, or just, you know, what you want to see from me in general on this channel as I continue to grow and get it popping. And yeah, thank you for watching. I love you guys down. Mwah, and I'll see you in the next video.